This is the data entry portion of Module 5 of IDIS online training for CDBG grantees. In this video, we will walk through the process of adding a public service activity that meets the limited clientele national objective. The best way to learn IDIS is to get hands-on practice. I want to encourage you to log into the UAT version of IDIS and enter the data as you follow the video. You can pause the video at any time by clicking the pause button in the lower left-hand corner. You can switch back and forth between this video and IDIS by holding down the Alt key on your keyboard and then pressing the Tab key. If you're not logged into UAT right now, pause the video and do so. You'll know if you're in the UAT version if you see UAT at the top of the screen. If you do not know how to access the UAT, there are directions at the bottom of the IDIS login page and also in Module 1 of this course. I'll be using the data found in Case Study 4 of the course materials. You can use the case study or simply make it up as you go along. Assignment 1 of our case study instructs us to input the data for a Head Start child care program. Once we successfully add the activity, we will be able to fund it and create drawdown vouchers for expenses that the program incurs. In Assignment 2, we will report accomplishments for the Head Start program and update the activity status to complete. We'll start at the home page of IDIS. To add an activity, we will click on Projects Activities in the navigation menu. The system by default shows the Search Activities page. This is used to find existing activities in the system. We don't want to look for an existing activity, we need to add a new activity. If you look to the left, you will see all of your options under Projects Activities module. Under Activity, you should see a link labeled Add. If you don't see this, your user profile may not have permission to add activities, in which case you will need to talk to your local administrator to obtain this permission. Once you click on the link, the system will take you to the Add Activity page where we can start entering data. If you're following along in your course manual, we are on page 3-2. Most users can skip past the Activity Owner field as it will default to the correct grantee. The next field is Program Year. Click on the drop-down arrow and select the year you want. If you don't see the correct year, this most likely means you have not yet set up projects for that year. You need to add your projects first, then come back and add your activities. In this case study, we set up our projects under 2010. In the next field, you will select the project that you want to associate with this activity. If you completed Module 2 of this course, you should see the projects you added. I'm going to select this public service project. If you did not complete Module 2, for the purpose of this training, you can select any project. The next field is Activity Name. It's a good idea to establish a naming convention that will help you quickly identify what each activity is. In the case study, our activity is representing a Head Start child care program. The activity name shows up on a lot of public CAPER reports, so try to use a descriptive name that an average person reading the CAPER would be able to understand. The Grantee/PJ Activity ID is another field that can help you identify the activity. This is an optional field. HUD does not require it. Many grantees populate this field with information that will help them reconcile their IDIS information and their local financial records, such as a contract number, purchase order number, or local accounting code. The next field is very important. If you click on the Activity Category field for CDBG, you'll see a long list of the eligible uses for CDBG and their corresponding matrix codes. It's really important to select the most appropriate matrix code here because the system will prompt us for different sets of information based on the matrix code we select. All except one of the public service matrix codes starts with 05. For some reason, homeless services are coded as 03T. For our case study, the most appropriate matrix code is 05L, Child Care Services. If you are having trouble choosing the matrix code, refer to Appendix A of the manual for some guidance and descriptions of each code. If you can't find a code that fits nicely with your public service activity, you can use 05 Public Services General. However, HUD only wants you to use this code as a last resort. The next field is Environmental Assessment. You will want to check with whoever in your office is responsible for environmental review. For most public services, the activity will be exempt. To the right of the environmental assessment, you will see a field called allow another organization to access this activity. You only need to provide this information if you will be giving IDIS access to a subrecipient so they can add their own data to the system. In general, CDBG grantees don't provide IDIS access to their subrecipients, so let's skip past this field. The last field is the description. HUD has not provided any guidance on the amount of detail you need here, so just use common sense. The main audience for this information is your HUD CPD representative, so you may want to discuss with them the level of detail they would like to see. For the case study, I'll put in a short sentence describing how CDBG funds will be used. If you have the description in another document on your computer, you can use the copy and paste function. CDBG funds will provide operating expenses to a Head Start childcare program to hire an additional aide and purchase classroom equipment. Once you are done providing the data, let's click Save at the bottom. If you provided all of the required data, you should see a Activity Saved message at the top of the screen. If you missed a required field, the system will prompt you for that information before it will let you save the screen. A quick note about required fields. The fields marked as required are the fields that the system will make you populate before you save the screen. There are many fields that are not required by the system that your HUD CPD representative will want to see answered so they can get a full picture of how the funds are being used. Once this first page is saved, the system will assign an IDIS activity ID to the activity. You may want to write down this number, as it is a quick way to find the activity in the system. You will also see that the system added some additional fields, including the activity status, which defaults to open, the completion date, and the initial funding date. You will also see a column in the activity category table called Ready to Fund. In the row for CDBG, it says Ready to Fund is No. This means we still need to provide more data and complete activity setup before we can commit funds and draw money against this activity. To complete activity setup, we'll click on the button in the Setup Detail column called Add CDBG. Here's the first of 2 pages of setup detail. In the manual, we are on page 3-5. Take note that the system is displaying the matrix code in big bold letters across the top of the page. As noted earlier, the fields we see and the data we need to input on the setup and completion pages will depend on the matrix code we select. The type of data we need to collect will also depend on the national objective we select, which is the first field on this page. It is extremely important to select the most appropriate matrix code and national objective. If you click on the drop-down for national objective, you will see a list of the national objectives available for this selected matrix code. The system will limit your choice of national objective based on the matrix code we selected on the first page. If you don't see the national objective you want, chances are you selected the wrong matrix code. There is a nice help feature built into the system. If you click on the lookup table, the system will open a cross-reference table in a new window. A printed version of this table is also included in Appendix C of the course material. The table has 3 columns: matrix code, national objective, and accomplishment type. To use the table, first find your matrix code. In the case study, we selected 05L, Child Care Services. Once we find our matrix code, we look in the middle column to see the different national objectives we could use for this activity. Once we select a national objective, the third column will tell us what accomplishment type we can use for the activity. For our case study, we will use LMC, or Limited Clientele. Our next field is accomplishment type. You will see that the system is not giving us a choice here. It's saying that based on our selected matrix code and national objective, we have to measure people. Specifically, HUD wants us to measure the number of unduplicated persons served. For example, a child participating in this Head Start program may use the program 100 times over the course of the program year. This would be the duplicated count of persons, since you are counting the same person more than once. In this case, HUD would want you to count this child only once when reporting goals and accomplishments. HUD allows grantees to space the proposed benefits over more than 1 year if the grantee feels that the project will take more than 1 year to complete. For most public services, the term of the agreement is for 1 year, and you wouldn't need to use this feature. If the term of the agreement was longer than 1 year, or was staggered across 2 program years, you could insert goals for the second program year by pressing the Add Another Year button. The system would give you a new row to input the goal for the second year. Our case study states that a total of 30 children will benefit, so we will use that number. The next 2 fields relate to HUD's Performance Measurement Framework. If you want more information on performance measurement, there is a lot of material on the HUD CPD website. This information should also be included in your annual action plan. The objective is used to indicate why you are undertaking the activity. For this activity, I will choose Suitable Living Environment. There is no right answer here, and it's somewhat subjective. You will want to be consistent with how you classified the activity in your action plan. The outcome is used to indicate what we hope to achieve by undertaking the activity. For this activity, we will choose Availability/Accessibility. Again, there is no right or wrong answer here. HUD will accept your selection as long as you have a rationale for your choice. Next is the address field. For our case study, you will see 2 addresses. One is the administrative office, and the other is the site at which the service will be performed. HUD does not need the address of the program administrator. HUD wants to know where the service is being performed. They will use this information to determine what areas of the community are receiving a benefit. Once you have provided the address information, you will want to click on the Validate this address field. If the system is able to validate the address, you can click on this icon to get some information about the address provided. In some cases, the system will not be able to validate the address, in which case you can skip the validation process at this time. The next section is labeled Activity Purpose and contains 4 yes/no questions that describe who will benefit from the activity. Answer yes or no based on the type of activity you are carrying out. In our case study, we can leave everything as no. On the right side of the screen is a section labeled Associate to Another Activity, with the question, will accomplishments be reported at another activity? You can use this field when you have more than one activity in IDIS for the same scope of work. This feature is not often used for public services. It's more common to use it for program delivery activities associated with housing or economic development. You will use the next section to indicate who is carrying out the activity. If the grantee is carrying out the activity with its own staff or through contractors, you will answer yes to the first question and then choose one of the selections from the drop-down. If the activity is being carried out by a subrecipient or another entity, you will answer no to the first question. When you do so, you will see that the information below becomes active, at which point you can click on the Select Organization button to choose your subrecipient and select the type of organization from the drop-down on the right. Selecting an organization is fairly straightforward. When searching for an organization, try typing just a portion of the name instead of the exact name, and you will get better results. You may see an organization listed more than once. If that's the case, choose the one with the most information. If you cannot find the organization in the system, you will have to add it. Keep in mind that you will need to know the DUNS number of the organization when you add it to the system. For more information on adding an organization, please see Appendix D of your course manual. For the case study, we will select No for the first question and select Head Start as the subrecipient. For the purpose of this exercise, if you do not have Head Start listed as one of your subrecipients, you can select another organization. The next section is Target Area. While a field is not required, it is important to provide this information when it is applicable. You will see 3 types of target areas available from the drop-down: CDFI, Local, and Strategy. There is more information on each in Appendix E of your manual. CDFI stands for Community Development Financial Institution. It's the least common target area. You will only select it if a CDFI is carrying out the activity and is utilizing the regulatory flexibility provided for CDFIs under the CDBG regulations. The local target areas are defined by the grantee and do not require HUD approval. A local target area would be any area where the grantee is making a concentrated effort to improve the area. Grantees may want to refer to their action plan, which should list any target areas. If a grantee uses this feature, the PR84 report will summarize your accomplishments for each target area. Grantees should only select Strategy Area when the activity is undertaken as part of a Neighborhood Revitalization Strategy Area, or NRSA. NRSAs are approved by HUD as part of the Con Plan or Action Plan. For the case study, we will not select a target area. For instruction on adding and selecting target areas, please refer to the Housing module or the Public Facilities module. The next section is called Special Characteristics, and you simply check the box next to each field if it applies. If you are not sure if they apply or not, refer to page 3-9 in your manual. If you place a check next to Brownfield Redevelopment, the system will prompt you to indicate how many acres are being remediated. Grantees in states that border Mexico will see an additional choice for colonias. The next section is a collection of checkboxes that relate to specific regulatory requirements of the CDBG program. If the activity will involve one-for-one replacement or displacement, you will see some narrative fields during the completion of the activity that can be used to describe how the grantee complied with these requirements. You should see special assessments in favored activity are grayed out. Special assessments apply to facilities and infrastructure, and favored activity is for economic development. The system knows that these fields would not apply to our public service activity based on the matrix code we selected. The other two choices are revolving loan and float funded. Go ahead and check them if they apply based on the funding of your program. If you check float funded, the system will prompt you for additional information regarding the float funding at the bottom of the screen. Once you're done, you'll see our options at the bottom. If we click Save, the system will save the data and return us to the previous screen. We still have one more page of data entry, so we want to click Save and Continue. This will bring us to page 2 of Setup Detail. If we hit Cancel, the system will not save any of our changes and it will take us back to the previous page. Here's the last page of Setup Detail. Once we complete it, we will be done with Activity Setup. Notice the matrix code listed at the top of the page. The fields that the system is displaying are based on the matrix code and national objective we selected. For our limited clientele activity, we see two questions. Will the activity serve a population that HUD classifies as a presumed benefit? And will the activity satisfy the limited clientele national objective based on its nature and location? You can use presumed benefit when the service will exclusively cater to one or more of the populations that HUD has identified. These include abused children, battered spouses, homeless, severely disabled adults, illiterate adults, persons with AIDS, migrant farm workers, and elderly persons. You can use nature location if, based on the activity's nature and location, it can be safely assumed that at least 51% of the activity's clientele will primarily be low and moderate income persons. Since this is subjective, it is recommended that you check with your field office representative to make sure that they agree with your assumptions. If you decide to use nature location, make sure to describe your assumptions and rationale in the narrative section provided. For our case study, we'll answer no to both. The next section asks for the budget of the activity. Notice that our CDBG field is grayed out. Once you draw funds against this activity, the system will populate that field for you. You'll notice that these fields are not required by the system to complete the screen. This is because some activities are fully funded by CDBG, and these fields would be blank. If the activity does have other funds involved, it is important to provide this information. One of the ways the CDBG program is evaluated at the federal level is its ability to leverage other funds. If filled out correctly, this section helps demonstrate that CDBG funds are in fact leveraging other available dollars. At the time of activity setup, you may not know the final budget for an activity. HUD has stated that it is permissible to provide budget estimates at this point. Once you have provided this budget information and the activity has drawn funds, the system will calculate a leveraging ratio for the activity. The next section collects data on how the CDBG funds are being distributed to beneficiaries. the key word being the beneficiary. HUD does not care how the funds are distributed to the subrecipient. In our case, the funds will be used by the subrecipient. None of the beneficiaries will receive grants or loans, so we can leave this section blank. When we're done, we'll click Save. This saves the second page and takes us back to the page we started at. If everything went well, we now see that the activity is ready to fund. The system gives you a button that will take you straight to the activity funding screen for this activity. Go ahead and fund the activity and create a drawdown. The next section of this module will demonstrate how to report accomplishments and complete this activity. For step-by-step guidance for the activity funding and drawdown, refer to the video for the funding and drawdown module.